The Uganda Martyrs are a group of 23 Catholic martyrs and 25 Anglican martyrs who were martyred or killed in the years 1885 and 1887, respectively. Every 3rd June of every year, Uganda celebrates these martyrs on grounds that they died for their faith, and their faith is what makes us remember them every 3rd of June. Today, we are discussing the significance of the Uganda martyrs to Uganda as a whole, but also to the religious faction. So joining me to discuss this very religious topic is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen who will help us unpack and put into perspective this conversation from the lens political, religious, but also economic as well. So let me just, by way of introduction, let my panelists go ahead and say hello, introduce themselves. Then we shall delve right into the conversation. I think it's only prudent that I let the lady introduce herself first.
Oh, thank you, Derek. My name is Amumpaire Hanah Teresah. I'm a second-year student at Makere University Business School. I'm a mental health advocate and the founder of Tehan Talks.
Thank you. Advocate. I'm thinking of how best we can have the mental health.
The matters.
But we shall get into that. But thank you. We're very happy to have you here and looking forward to having a very interesting conversation.
Very much.
Gentleman in a neat tie, most welcome.
Thank you so much, Drake. Thank you so much for putting me on the show. I'm Derek Mwanje, a 3rd-year student at St. Ones University, as well as the Guild Prime Minister of St. Ones University. This is not my first time to be on the show. I just thank the management, just thank the team for allowing me to come several times here to extend my ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very happy to have you here, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank
I
you so
hope
much.
the university is in safe hands.
Exactly.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Very smart and very elegant. Thanks for that.
Awesome.
So the conversation is going to begin every 3rd June, and we celebrate the martyrs. And from experience, Namugongo looks to be a very busy area. But we shall get into the economic perspective.
Yes.
Let me just start with the lady. Put into perspective, bring for us up to speed by way of introduction what the significance of this Martyrs Day and how you're going to go about this discussion.
Looking at the significance of the Uganda Martyrs, every 3rd June is celebrated in Uganda. We'll just go into a brief history of how it all came about. You said 25, but I think
22 Catholics.
22 Catholics, and there's supposed to be 23 Protestants. In total, they're supposed to make 45 martyrs. And, you know, looking at their whole story and them dying for their faith is what we celebrate today. So when you read through their whole history and how they were all martyred, put in the middle, and they're killed. So some were killed and some were burnt. One story stands out for me of one of the martyrs. I think it was called St. Mbaga, something like that. The chief executioner was his uncle, so he was his nephew. And so he found it very hurtful to kill his own nephew. So he sent him back home and told him, you go home, like escape, like this is the way to escape. And he insisted that I'm going to die, like I'm going to die. And you're like, okay, this is interesting. People who are just introduced into this whole phase of Christianity, they don't know if it's real, they don't know if it's, but somehow they know that they're in the right thing and they're willing to die for it. And you're like, okay, that's interesting. So Kabaka Mwanga being behind this whole thing, he felt like it was, I think, a political struggle in his kingdom, yeah? Because somehow all his men and were turning to this whole Christianity kind of thing. But one significant thing that stands for me is that these men set a bar for how our faith should be. And every time we celebrate them, it's not because they died, but they are putting themselves as sacrifice for their faith, and they're willing to die for it. I think it's what stands out for me, like, wow. So when we celebrate them, we need to turn back and ask ourselves, what exactly do I learn from this whole story? Am I willing to stand for what I believe? Am I willing to stand for my values and principles? Am I willing to die for it at the end of the day if it comes to that point? So I think that's that's the biggest significance with the whole Martyrs.
All right. I think I'll get to you on that point of the values that the Martyrs set in relation to the significance that it has on, first of all, our lives as young people, Ugandans at large, but then we should also look at the perspective of the religious faction. But let me just get to Derrick. Derrick,
yes.
To you, when you look at the story of the Martyrs, right now we're looking by way of introduction, but also delving into the significance that the Uganda Martyrs has onto your life, but also to the country at large. Yes. What is your say?
Thank you so much, Derrick. Bringing the history part of it, we are seeing that 45 martyrs were killed or were burnt in between 1885 to 1887, right? And we are seeing the king of Buganda, by that time it was His Majesty King Mwanga, is the one who ordered for the killing of those martyrs, with an advocate of them refusing to denounce the name of Jesus, right? Denounce their religion. So to me, the significance will come in several ways, because we will categorize them that we are going to see the significance when it comes to the history part of it. We are going to see the significance when it comes to the cultural part of it. We have what we call the religious part of it. Then we have the economic part of it. How does it economically impact our country, our economy? Then we are going to go into details and we see how is it impacting us politically, because we saw some political figures there, we saw some big figures in the government representing us, right? So that is, for me, we are going to dive into, and then we see how is it really important to our country. Of course, how is it important to our country and then to the international community? Which picture does it give us as a country when we celebrate it?
All right, perfect. So it's going to be a very broad conversation, looking at the political, social, and economic. Exactly. In a nutshell, those are the three areas. But under the political, we shall then break it down to, first of all, the significance that it played in the scramble for Africa, but also how it played in shaping the politics of this country. And economically, we shall look at, so it was business. It was business in Amugongo. I believe people made millions of money. And socially, first of all, we had people coming into the country. There was a lot of cultural diversity in the area. And all that's something we're going to delve into. Yes. But let me just now get back to the lady who brings in a very interesting perspective. Yes. Values. These are individuals who barely had spent time understanding the faith of Christianity. And the 45 of them who gave their life for Christ on grounds that they believed in Christianity is something that you say speaks to values. Yeah. And let us now bring that context to our contemporary life today. I just wanted to draw for us a nexus between the life of the martyrs and the life of Ugandans today in the line of the values.
Okay, that's very interesting. Because that's like a big... There's so much to say about it. Not that. But the martyrs, I must say, were very disciplined, because these people used to religiously attend all the sermons, religiously attend to everything that had to happen in the church. They were present. And they took in the gospel as it was and as it is. And if you're to draw the line between us, Ugandans, I can't say Ugandans is too broad, because we are all different. There's the atheists, there are the Christians, there are the Muslims. So, but at the end of the day, we all learn something from them. But if we're to draw a line, I think our value system with time has gone down. Yeah, because now you see, I am very proud of our president who put a stand on the LGBTQ, because that also has to cover the value system. Because now if our president also wanted to take in the perspectives of the people, I don't know where I would be, because Ugandans are just free-minded people. We are very free-minded and we are very open, like, okay, and
I think that's generalization though. Not every Ugandan is free-minded.
But the biggest percentage.
No, I disagree. I disagree with that, but proceed.
Yeah, but we are all open-minded.
Not all. Say so.
No, we accept things as they are.
I still disagree. Yeah.
It's okay. So, looking at our value system, like I said, it has gone down. And, you know, with this generation, like everything is just... like it's overhand. Sometimes, if it wasn't for us celebrating some of these days, I think we wouldn't even remember them. Like, they wouldn't be part of us. But these culture days continue to instill values like patriotism, solidarity, and faith at the end of the day. So if we are to keep passing on those values, at least it would, I think it will keep us in shape
But let me
somehow.
just ask you,
Yeah.
do you think the celebration or the remembrance of the Uganda Martyrs, is it as significant as it was 10 years down the road?
10 years. I think
Compare
it has
2014
remained.
and 2024. Do you see a drop or do you see a rise in the significance of the remembrance of the Uganda Martyrs?
I think if we're to look at the significance, the numbers still grow. The numbers are still there. So I think people still know that we have to make this journey, go to Namugongo, celebrate them, and go back home. So I think it's something that still awakens people.
All right.
Yeah.
Derrick, before we get into the political talk and all,
Yes.
we have the people who orchestrated the mass this year in the Catholic shrine were the persons from Nebi Archdiocese who animated the celebrations,
Yes,
and it was
yes.
marvelous.
Yes.
I think you've seen a photo of a gentleman who was singing with a lot of passion and his jaws are wide.
I actually made a meme
passion.
about him.
Yes.
That shows a lot. Let's look at the values. The Martyrs depict a lot of, as she said, determination, resilience,
Yeah,
faith,
exactly.
belief. Even when they did not know this Christianity, what Christianity is to them,
Yeah.
they stood firm to their grounds. Let us now bring this conversation because we need to relate it to our lives,
Yes.
today, and that is why we remember them.
Yes.
Speaking of that significance, are many Ugandans still interested in listening to the conversations around the Martyrs and relate the life of the Martyrs to what they are today?
Thank you so much, Drake. In my perspective, for me, I'll take it that to a lesser extent, Ugandans are interested in hearing the stories about the Martyrs.
Yeah.
You've asked my colleague that how compare the numbers, compare the numbers in 2014 to 2024, right? But for me, to my side, I see there is a drop, right? Because people are no longer interested in the stories, in the activities that are taking place in what?
Has it become monotonous?
Not really. I'm not. Yeah, they're not. Actually, people are now losing that interest, that values, those things because.
What's causing the decline? In
the decline, it is because that our leaders are giving us a very bad example. Why do I say this? We are seeing that our leaders are not persistent because we are seeing the Martyrs. They were determined, they were persistent, and then they were resilient in what they were doing, right? But when it comes to our leaders, remember that we, the followers, we are following the leaders, right? So, but the leaders of the church, the leaders of the community, they are not determined, they are not resilient, they are not persistent in what they are telling us, they are giving us empty promises. So people are finding no reason to go to Namugongo to listen to them more because they've lied them a lot, right?
But let me, I just disagree with you there.
Yes.
We have had a couple of Ugandans walking thousands of kilometers
Yes.
from their destinations to come to Namugongo to celebrate the Uganda Martyrs.
Yes.
One would argue that the movement or the journeys or the treks that the pilgrims made from the various parts of this country
Yes.
shows that there is still love. There is still love and belief in the what the Martyrs did, and they are dying for the faith of Christianity.
I would like to challenge you, Drake, by
Yes.
saying that yes, we are still seeing the numbers, but we are seeing a decrease in the numbers. My brother, the numbers, the last 10 years or the last 20 years, people used to trek long distances and you could see large numbers.
People actually still did. From
But
north,
in
from
small,
east, from west,
but in small
people
numbers.
still trek.
But in small numbers.
Yeah.
For us, the issue is in the numbers. How many people are interested?
You're an
People,
economist, so
yes.
you're interested in the numbers.
Yeah, we are interested in the numbers. We are interested in the figures, right? If 2013 there were 1,000 pilgrims coming from Masaka, and today we are only seeing 100 of them, what does it show? What is that? What I think some difference there. So that's why I'm saying that people are no longer having that that intrigue in them, that love for the what? For the mass. Though people are still interested in them and they're still believing in them because that's their religion, that's their faith. And the other thing is there are a lot of things that they learn from the Martyrs. For example, determination in what they are doing, right? People, because now I'm narrating it to our lives, people are still trekking, though in small numbers, they're still going there. Just because to learn how these people, to get the stories, where did they get the charisma of being there, and they are burnt and they cannot do what? And they cannot move away, or they cannot run away. So to me, I see, though to a greater extent people are not interested, but to a lesser extent people are still interested. Maybe even the issue that why the numbers are decreasing, my colleagues, is that maybe it is due to the advanced technology that people are no longer interested in going to the place physically, but they will access it from anywhere, right? So maybe, but as an economist, for me, I'll go to reality. We are considering numbers on the ground.
Okay.
Right, yes.
Interesting. So let's just shift gears from the values and then look at, let's start with the economics. I'd like us to tackle the politics later.
Yes.
Relating or juxtaposing the significance of the Martyrs' Day to Ugandans, I would also want to look at, I would like us to discuss it from an economic perspective. And I think right now I'll start that economic perspective with you, my brother Derrick.
Yes.
Considering that business every 3rd June starts from around 28th of May. Okay, actually 27th of May.
25th
up to
even.
up to
5th June, even people still there making
because
money.
up to now people are still set up. What does that mean for the business community here?
Economically, we are seeing the country is benefiting. The country is benefiting. First of all, when it comes to the area of tourism, we are seeing a lot of people, we are seeing a lot of pilgrims coming from different countries, coming to a country and visiting the shrines in Namugongo, right? So those people are coming in with some cash, they are coming in with some ideas that are really benefiting, that are really essential for our economic growth. For example, the visitors that we have received from outside the country, even our fellow Ugandans are coming from different countries. You're seeing that people are coming from Nebi, though the leading diocese was from Nebi, right? People are coming from Nebi, coming to Kampala, right? So we are seeing the restaurants are benefiting, hotels are benefiting, hawkers are benefiting. Everyone is, when it comes to the issue of connection, people are benefiting. Transport, people are getting some good money, right? So the country is benefiting there. And then the other thing is that we are seeing what we call people are benefiting when it comes to the national identity, right? To me, 3rd June is a public holiday that is respected within our country.
But also internationally.
But we are seeing it being respected internationally. That gives us a very good picture for our country, for our nation Uganda, for our mother Uganda, that it is recognized internationally. That people will rest, people will pause what they are doing to give respect or to pay attention or to pay a vote of thanks to the what? To the people that died for the religion. Economically, it will also boost our economy just because we are going to receive some funds from Roma, right? I will not, maybe the Catholic side received some funds from Roma, the Anglicans received funds from different parts of the country just because to take care of the what? Of the occasion. And then the other thing, when it comes to economic side, we are seeing that when it comes to, there is what you call economic growth, right? Economic growth. So our economic growth grew due to the fact that there is high demand for goods and services.
But it's only for a few days, so I think it's not enough determinant to say that we shall have an economic growth.
But we can base on it. Reason being that people have increased the production, right? Though it is for a few weeks, but
few days actually.
There are weeks. People are starting to make money from around 20th May. I know, let us take days. But though it is a day or a weeks, but people will still benefit, right? Our country will still benefit in that increase the production of goods and services. Because remember that the more we produce, the more the country benefits through revenues, employment, what and what. Then the other economic part of it, we are seeing that people are getting what we call seasonal or seasonal employment. People are getting employment for 3 days and they're earning 100, that is around 300. So people, that means that increase the seasonal employment will increase on the, will boost the standards of living due to the fact that people have got the confidence to go by the cost of living, right? Because they are earning some good money, they are getting this, because they are getting some good money from Namgongo, and people are going to invest it. You are going to hear that people are going to buy lands, people are going to build their houses just because of the 3 to 2 days. So that's how I can take it economically.
All right, let me get to you, Hanah. I'd just like you to also give us a perspective from the economic lens, considering that we have had all those days, people have, we have had tourists coming into the country, we have had business thriving. What is your say?
Before we get into that other side of the economy, we shouldn't forget that the government actually puts in money into this. I remember one of the headlines around May was saying that government is short of 1 billion to cater for that. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But the spending of government, even those days, is actually intense.
But is it felt?
It is felt.
Because
all the money that is spent by the government is
after the
felt.
event, we have pilgrims who are stuck at Namgongo, and it will take them days to transport them back to their respective districts.
Isn't it always on them? Is it the government that usually caters for their transportation?
The government does.
Oh. Yeah, so besides the government spending, like he shared, when you move around, it's like a trade show during those days. And there's always that section. There's always that section where traders just display all kinds of things.
Yes.
And okay, that has a huge impact on our economy for just a few days.
Yes.
And you know that transportation also covers a lot, because some of the people, not everyone usually walks there. Some people are transported there. Some people are, the hotel business usually thrives in those businesses, in those days. So I think it usually has a big impact.
How about in perspective of tourism?
Tourism, the shrines are usually visited in those days, and it's usually at a low fee. Because I was surprised to know that it's around 5,000 shillings for every person to enter.
5 to 3,000.
5 to 3.
Yes.
Yeah, 3,000 usually for children. Yeah.
Okay. So I think when you look at it from an economics lens, it is the significance of the matters in terms of improving the livelihoods of Ugandans. Yes. It's something that you cannot just turn a blind eye on. But
does that improvement of livelihoods have, like, is it a long term or short term?
Definitely.
It's usually short term.
It's usually short term, but from personal experience, I've had there's someone who's older to me told me that when she was conducting her restaurant business, she made around, in the past years, she made around 5 million clean money from 28th to 3rd June. And I think, imagine that small setting, someone earning 5 million in less than a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money in Uganda. And that just tells you, now that is just one story. How about the others who are doing the business?
And what about those that are having more capital than even her?
Definitely.
Yes.
So there are various factors that come in place. And when you look at that, then I think it's very crucial. But let us look at it religiously now. What impact does this have to various religions, to the church itself?
Thank you so much, Derek. I think there are several advantages or several meals that the church really gains from the 3rd June. For example, we are seeing that different denominations or different religions are boosted. They have that courage to be boosted in their faith and sacrifice due to the fact that they are seeing that the Master has died for them. So they have that courage in them that we should also increase our faith. We should increase our sacrifice for anything that we want, because as my colleagues say that these matters really give us the determination that can you fight for what you want. So it is a lesson that the churches or religious denominations learn, that do we have faith to fight for a religion, or we are just meandering around, or we are just joking around, right? So, and then the other thing that when it comes to the religious part of it, we are seeing what you call see what we call that togetherness that comes within different denominations. Because nowadays it came to my attention that I heard that even Muslims are now going to Namugongo there.
That they are Muslim matters.
Muslim
Muslim matters.
Really?
I read something that's actually Muslim matters.
And the
Yes.
70 to 100, actually the biggest number.
So for me, in that perspective, I see that there is that thing of coming together, that togetherness. So people are getting connected. People are getting that brotherhood, that sisterhood.
You see,
that, yes.
Just allow me to interject. You see how the church coordinates when it comes to the Martyrs' Day celebration. I paid keen attention that when the pilgrims were walking from the various corners of the country,
yes,
in every parish they reached to, there was water, there was food. So that just tells you the teamwork that the churches have in that period, and that shows quite a significant contribution to the country in terms of working together and seeing that Ugandans receive, a warm reception, which is anyway our trait.
Yeah.
Exactly, because that also goes to the fact that we are seeing that these religious denominations are walking a talk.
Yeah.
That because the Bible teaches us to help each other, we are seeing them, as you've said, they are seeing them helping others, buying water. By the way, even on the roadside, I saw people buying water, buying chapatis, what and what, everything. People were feeding them. But that means that brings in the sense of brotherhood. People are getting connected, people are coming together, and they are increasing their connectivity with it, with other areas, with other people. Because even the other thing is that when it comes to the religious part of it, we are seeing that this occasion that happened 3rd of June, it is increasing what we call the value of. Have I talked about it? But that sense of learning ideas of copying cultures from different people,
Culture
because we are
exchange.
seeing people coming from different regions of the of the country. So we are seeing that due to the fact that they are congregating in this one place, there is what we call exchange of cultures and norms. You see, we are going to learn the culture of the so-called Nebi, because I was so interested in them. The dioceses that came from Nebi. They exchanged their culture, the way they were singing, the way they were dancing. That is their culture. And then for even the Uganda, we exchanged our cultures because they saw how we dance, they saw how we welcome people. Among the tribes in Uganda that we have, I can bet you that Baganda are the most hospitable people, right? So they are exchanging that value with us. Exactly.
Otherwise, I think
we are the most hospitable people.
I won't say anything.
Most welcoming people, right?
The fact that you're staying in Uganda, but you may have a different view.
Yes, you give us a view, but we are saying that we are welcoming different people, different tribes from anywhere. Because why do I say? Let me give you this practical example. When you go to Arua, or those place of West Nile, my dear friend, to own land there, it is a tug of war, right? To own land there, to be part of the community, it takes time. But when you come here in Kampala, when you come here in Uganda, the moment you see, the minute we glance at you,
is it a cause of civilization?
Right? No. It isn't. It is.
I think it could be a cause of civilization.
Cause of civilization?
But
in Baganda?
But even people in the rural civilized.
They are civilized because the government
But you look at
in much to
extent
civilize
now.
everyone in the country. But just because of their culture, they don't just allow people within their circles.
Yeah, close
Right,
society.
yes. So, but you're saying that. So they are coming here in Buganda, they are coming here in Namugongo. We are extending that hospitality. Please, can you also adopt it, right? Can you also have that welcoming heart?
But I think generally Ugandans are very welcoming people.
Generally.
Move across the country.
But we are giving credit to some tribes. Doing
Let me just get
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let me just get to Hanah. Religiously, we have seen, as I earlier on hinted on, that there's been teamwork exhibited by the church. We have seen the church working together to see that the pilgrims are welcomed, that the pilgrims are catered for. But inside the church, we have seen organizations or associations like Mothers Union offering free service to the pilgrims. I was privileged enough to move with one of the members of the Mothers Union. I remember we got 25 packets of buns around Sunday, and there were G-nuts, there was tea, and they were offering free charitable service to the pilgrims. And the argument that this lady told me was like, you see, Drake, some of us who seem to have had it all here in Kampala forget that someone moves from wherever they are, kilometers, on that faith, the faith that they hold so dearly, to come to Namugongo. Yet you who is here in Kampala can't even walk from Gayaza to Namugongo.
Exactly.
Because you're going to say it's a very long distance. So the only way we as mothers know the pain, and the only way we can give back to them, is through offering the charity that we do. Because you may give someone tea, but that tea is what they will have for the entire day. And it's
week.
prayer they will have for you. So religiously, we have seen people doing a lot of charity, people offering a lot of services to the pilgrims, which shows a lot of togetherness among Ugandans. How significant is this? I think that rotates around the argument of values to the Ugandans, but also to the associations that are within the church.
Yeah. I want to go back to one statement my grandma made when she was reading the newspapers one morning, and she was seeing she was seeing the stories of these pilgrims, and then she was like, if these people move these distances, they must know what faith means.
Yes.
Like, they should be the ones understanding that the whole salvation story, and once they give their lives to Christ on that day, they should never turn back. And that is real, because by the time you move from the north to come to Namugongo, and
500 kilometers from maybe.
Believe me, some people don't even know why they're moving.
Yeah,
I must be. Some people, another trending story of
I kept
using food. And you're like, oh, that was also So
people come for the experience.
Yeah, some people move for the experience. Tourism.
Exactly.
Yeah, just let me go on a tour. Yeah, so by the time you move that whole journey, let's say you didn't understand why you're moving. At least when you get into that services, because all those services, the moment they get there, all the services are on faith, are on resilience, are on understanding salvation, and that is going to give a very big change in this person's life. Yeah, this one is going to be changed. But looking at the togetherness and the brotherhood, Ugandans, we are very tribalistic. Everyone wants to stand. They want to be named for where they come from.
Are you sure?
Yeah. The moment you talk about Uganda being hospitable, you must be a Uganda. Yeah. At least if I was Drake saying that, then I would be like, okay, but
but it's only natural that we all like where we come from.
We do. Like, the moment you're identified with where you come from in Uganda. Yeah. So during this moment, we understand the need for having, let me call it a support system in the church, to know that they're going to communicate that our people have left and this and that. So there's going to be some sort of communication, and people will be helped. People will be, they will be given that zeal, like keep moving, because it's very, I don't, can you do it? Like, can you move that journey?
I've actually been thinking of trekking.
Trying it out.
But trekking in a way that I capture people's stories. And listen.
Yeah, Gen Z. So you find that now, I don't know for our generation if such pilgrims will still be met.
We actually will have them.
They will.
Are you sure?
I think we will.
Are you sure?
The thing is, the problem is we usually generalize our argumentations and think because we live in the urban settlement, everyone else in the rural setting would live and think like us. And in actual sense, majority of the population of this country are rurally based who still live in that setting. So if you saw the amount of the number of mothers who moved to Namugongo carrying their babies on the back, tells you a lot. Now that experience that child has had on the back of her mom from Nebi to Namugongo is a story that that kid will tell for the rest of his life.
They will.
Now, that is already passing on information to the next generation.
But how many of those will still be there?
There are quite many. When I was moving around, when I was going to Mukono around Sunday, I saw very many young people walking with their bags and jerrycans with water. Now, that just tells you that we have our generation who believe and have that faith, walking kilometers to Namugongo. The only problem that I think we are facing as a nation is we have this, okay, yes, there's rise in tech, there is a lot of secularism coming on board, and people who are paying so much attention to the to secularism are forgetting certain things that matter, like faith. So if we pay attention to things like faith, and which the rural people do very well, you'd find that in a rural setting, a rural family, every Sunday, they're going to church. How many families, when you come to the urban setting, go to church together on Sundays?
But I think it's not. I don't think it's a question of faith. Like there must be like a division of faith between the two. But I think what we have seen and what we have known is different. Yeah. So while there might be those people that are still, we're saying that those are the few that are still remaining. Yeah. Those are the few that we are upholding in this generation. Yeah.
By birth, you're baptized in the Anglican Church.
Yeah.
Right. And which archdiocese are you from? All right, let me just ask. Let me just use my example.
Okay.
I was baptized in the Catholic Church
Yes.
in Gulach Diocese, in a church called Holy Rosary Catholic Church. Now, Holy Rosary, it's a tradition that before the 3rd of June, they would start making announcements as early as December.
For baptism?
No, not for baptism, for Martyrs' Day.
Okay.
Yeah, as early as December, and that is still the norm up country. They will announce for people who want to trek to Namugongo to sign up. So you sign up, and even in catechism, when you go for catechism, they talk about this, and that just tells you how the church still nurtures people. So I'm using my example because I believe my experience could also be a couple of Ugandans' experience who have been born in those archdioceses and are growing in faith. So from my experience, I think there are very minimal people like that.
Yeah.
So from that example, that just shows you that we shall still, in years to come, have people who have that faith and zeal to walk from Gulu to Namugongo, from Zombo to Namugongo. But then going back is until the government to take us back to our places. But the argument here is people still have that faith. But I feel like what we then need to do is replicate the faith into our action. There's a Bible verse that says, faith
without action.
Yes, faith without action is no faith.
Yeah.
But faith with action is faith.
Yeah.
So our faith ought to speak, which then informs our next discussion, which I want to put it right now. The main celebrant, as His Grace Wakorach, was preaching about the government stand, that the same way the government had energy and zeal to combat or pass the anti-homosexuality law should be the same zeal they used to fight corruption. We're not switching gears to the political.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me start with you, Derrick. Corruption is a vice that has eaten us. And the church has been very vocal in calling out the leaders and telling them that, you see, we need to fight the vice of corruption and deliver services to the people. Martyrs' Day is significant because the life of the martyrs shows or depicts to us what we ought to do as a current generation to propel Uganda forward. What is your say?
Thank you so much, Drake. You know, when it comes to corruption, we Ugandans, we made it the way to go. Yeah. And I don't know why is it like that. Is it just because due to the fact that we Ugandans love soft things, soft life, just to get money, just deal money, you know, sitting in an office and having a deal of 2 billion. 2 billion, I'm giving 100 million. Actually, it has become a code of conduct in Ugandan offices, that whenever you're taking something, you're having something, you're taking a letter that I want to win this contract. Like, for example, you're binding to do what? To take a contract of a road, construct what? The first thing the commissioner will tell you to give you my signature. How have you left me?
You need to grease the wheels.
Yeah. You know, people have even termed it that speak in English now, speak in English, right? Just to make people, just to disorganize the conversation. But the truth of the matter is that when you come back to 3rd June, the relationship is that the religious leaders have not done enough to instill in us the good ways of conducting ourselves, that brotherhood, that heart that cares, that heart that is hurt after hurting someone, right? Because if I come to your office, coming to your office, it means that I have no ability to help myself. But come in your office, if without an envelope, no job, right? So for me, I put the blame on the religious leaders that have been here. Actually, even I heard the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda also advocating about corruption when he was preaching there. But our leaders, should we that they are deaf? I don't know. Is it because that people are now on taking self-care? I'm just minding about my own business. I don't know what comes next, come what may, right? But for me, I'll just put the blame on the religious leaders that they've not done enough. They've not preached enough. Is it just because they're not leading by examples? Because we have some religious leaders that also bribe people, that also give corrupt, because if a religious leader comes to my office and bribes me, that means he has also committed what we call corruption, right? Since most of them are doing it, so also we leaders, we are copying from them. So it is our say, it is our take, it is our stand to tell them that please can you stop? Because if you let me give you an example. It's like being in a family. Like we as married people.
We.
Hey, like as married people. I'm not yet married.
But
We as married people.
Anyway, I'm soon. But
congratulations.
Exactly. But
shall we have better invitation?
Of course, I invite you. I will invite you. Of course, I will invite you. But the truth of the matter that let's come to the situation that you're in your family, and then you're having a wife and 2 children. But you as a father, you commit something that is offense, that is really
not good.
Shaming you. Then you come to your daughter. Let me give you this 1,000. You don't tell your mom. So what are you expecting your child to grow up with? So it is the same thing that he will come to you, Daddy, I've done this, but I have my 500, get it. Because he copied from you. Remember, those children are learning a lot from us. So it is my advocate to the religious leaders that let them do what they can to curb corruption, because corruption starts from the church. People within the church, administrators within the church, they're all corrupt. And we don't know where to take the blame to. So
you really generalized.
The truth of the matter is that yes, we are all corrupt. We are all corrupt. Wait. Anyway. Yes, it is my say. Why am I saying that? Having a service from a church, the one to direct you to the archbishop will ask you for something, right? For example, I want to access as the archbishop of the Catholic Church. That is who? I'm forgetting his Archbishop Semoge. Is it Semoge? Yes. But reaching to the Lubaga Cathedral, finding a cleaner, telling you to direct you there, I need 2,000. You got the office, taking you there, I need this, right? So that is all corruption.
Do you think that is the problem of the church?
It is the problem of the church.
Or the problem of the politicians that have created such an environment? Because the church is trying to advocate the politicians to reverse the environment. Because for me, where I sit, the cause of the corruption that we're facing is, one, people are poor. So if people are poor, what is the coping mechanism? Getting handouts.
Exactly.
So how do you get those handouts? Of course, such means of getting money. So what the church is trying to do, the church is trying to cut the tree from the roots, not from the stem. Now, calling out the religious, the politicians to combat corruption is something that they want to advocate for to help change the situation. Now, how do you fight corruption? Avail for people jobs, avail for people opportunities, let people have disposable income. Because if people have money, it's not easier to buy someone out. Just like when someone is poor, you cannot convince them with a packet of salt and sugar to vote for them because people have the money. Then that is the role of the church. The church is supposed to call out the corrupt leaders. Even historically, you've seen what Jesus was doing in his gospel. But nonetheless, let me just quickly bring in Hanah, and then we can go for a break and get back. Hanah.
There's a scripture that says, Psalms 11:5. It says that if the foundations, if the foundations are destroyed, what do the righteous have to do? So I feel like if the foundations in this case, we are looking at two things. We are looking at the church and we're looking at the family system. So if you find that in the family, it has become a norm, like parents no longer instill values of truthfulness, integrity, trustworthy, and you find that it's hard to trust a Ugandan. We are known for that. Like, you can't easily trust a Ugandan. So we're giving, yesterday we're talking, and we're giving like Rwanda and Uganda. You find that the way Rwandans conduct themselves, treat themselves, is quite different from how Ugandans do their things. In work, in like everything is just, so you find that our foundations, I feel, have not done what they ought to have done. If children are going to church and they're preaching this gospel and telling them this and this is supposed to be done that way, the families standing on the same values that the church has taught, then I think it would be bringing up a better kind of person in this generation. So I think in the religious aspect, more has to be done, really. More has to be done. But we can't entirely put the blame on the church because, yes, we accept and we can't stand and condemn them or judge them but instead, I don't know, bring out what should be done and,
But the truth of the matter is that the church has failed.
It hasn't failed. We wouldn't tag it as failed, but it needs to do more.
As you've given us an example, that the relationship between Rwanda and Uganda, for sure, the perspective, it is very, very difficult on the way we handle issues.
But what do you think the church has to do? Because the church has no capacity in any way to influence any policy, like directly. Maybe they can indirectly influence policy through their preachings in church.
Yes.
So what must the church do differently if you're saying that they're failed? Because where I sit, actually...
I remembered a small story of, I think it was published in the newspapers, and they're talking about how even at Namugongo itself, during the service, many people were collecting money in form of tithe, and like, is it this bad? Like someone can't respect that this is a place of worship, and there's certain things I can't do in a place of worship. So it's really bad. Yeah.
Maybe for me, they've asked me a question, but before I got the question, maybe the blame is that we Ugandans love quick things, right? We love things that we love taking shortcuts.
What is the
right?
problem then? Because if we love quick things, what causes that problem?
The problem is that we are under the poverty line.
Thank you. We are poor people.
Yes.
So who is supposed to help reverse that poverty?
All Ugandans poor.
Yes. It's not who is supposed to provide those enablers to help uplift Ugandans from the poverty? Definitely the government.
Yeah.
How do you provide those enablers? One, come up with good policies and implement them to the door. Come up with good education system that makes people educated and equip them with skills. Now, once you do all that, provide the necessary services, let healthcare possibly even be free. Provide all those enablers and see if the standard of living of Ugandans would be different and if you can easily buy someone with a packet of salt. Because if someone has the money that, for the basics of their life, it's not as easy to buy them out when they have zero. So where I sit, the problem isn't with the church. The church is doing what it can do to advocate and preach otherwise. Now, it's up to the political leaders and our leaders to act upon that preaching to see that there's a difference. Exactly,
but I wanted to give you some example. The Uganda Bureau of Statistics has given us hope that 98, 99, 8% of the Ugandan population, that is just a hit. It is what? It is in good condition. How can I say? How can I phrase it? That they can afford food, they can afford clothing, they can do this. So for them, they are timing it that Uganda is what? Is growing. No. So maybe due to the fact that they gave us those statistics, let us have a hope that corruption will what? Will reduce or will curb it just because people have got what we call disposable income. Right?
Just before we go into the break, I'm going to speak like an ordinary Ugandan.
Yes.
We do not eat statistics. What someone in Nakapiri is concerned is that medicine in the health center. Can I easily access that? Like, those are the questions someone is concerned about. Is there a good road for me to access this? If my mother is sick, if my wife is pregnant, shall they die giving birth? All those are questions that the person living in that rural area is asking, and there are question marks. So, those statistics, do they still stand?
Exactly, they stand.
Shall I just go for a short
break? 98 is too inaccurate.
We have been discussing the significance of Uganda Martyrs celebrations to Uganda, but also to the religious fraternity. We'll be right back. See you shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that break. Right before we went into the break, we were discussing the significance of the Uganda Martyrs celebrations to Uganda at large, but also to the religious community. So joining me, as earlier on, the panelists introduced themselves, is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen. That is Mr. Derrick and Miss Hanah. So just before we went into the break, there was a heated argument from the political lens, juxtaposing it to the significance of Uganda Martyrs celebration. The argument was on grounds of corruption. The church has done its part in advocating for service delivery and fighting of corruption, of which the president on 3rd of June greatly reiterated still on the same argumentation. But he focused on that Uganda, we shall not bend to the winds of the West and accept their unnatural ways, because he says the Martyrs did not even practice that. If you listen to his speech, he said all that. But we would contest that with history. But let's just let me get to you, Hanah. Still politically, 1985, 1987. If you 1885 and 1887. Later on, that was a period whereby there was scramble for Africa. Later on, we see in 18, I think it was in 1888, Uganda was declared a British protectorate.
1884.
1884. Now, when Uganda was declared a British protectorate in 1884, we saw later on there was those religious wars historically. We had the we had the Anglican, we had the Catholics, and the religious wars started right from that point in time of the Uganda Martyrs. So I want us to dissect the conversation from how the death of those the Uganda Martyrs has influenced our political terrain up to today. Do we still vote on grounds of religion? Do we still choose our leaders that this one is Catholic, this one is Anglican? How has the death of the Uganda Martyrs influenced our political terrain to date?
Okay. You know, you are dating back to the whole religious wars and everything, and you realize in that period after the Martyrs were killed, I think was it the British that I think questioned Mwanga and everything, and in part they had to take over the kingdom, and that's where we see the Uganda kingdom was taken over, right? And the land is divided. You know, they set up a different committee and everything.
Comes into leadership.
Yeah. So do you realize that from that time, I think we lost our country, because during the day it was Uganda as a whole. So I think we lost to colonialism during that period, and that in case there was guilt that I think Mwanga had to take. He had that guilt of, after being questioned and everything, that he had to be taken away. So, but from that time we see the colonialists now come into power, like with power, a lot of power. And with the question
but they used religion to capture.
Yeah, they did. They did. You know, because they say that the Bible was behind and the gun is behind and the Bible is at the front. Yeah, so asking if we still choose according to religion, I think it's not the norm. I don't think it is, in my perspective. I don't think we choose President Museveni every time because he's Anglican, or would choose Bobi Wine because he's...
Really?
I don't think. I really don't think.
What's your view?
My view, because we are not relating our political. For example, our president, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Y.K.M.7, I believe he was elected due to his, part of his victory came from his religion, that was the Anglican Church, because we are not looking at this present perspective, but we are going back to the 1886. 1886. Is it
1986?
Yes,
Yeah.
1986 to 1995 there. The Anglican Church played a vital role in nurturing as well as bringing the government of His Excellency, the President, into power, right? By the way, it is the same thing, because for me, I'll agree with you 100%. People, even to present, are still electing, are still voting leaders basing on their religious denominations. Why am I saying this?
But is that
because
how it's
let me
supposed
give
to
you a
be?
current example. During this scandal, or that is in the National Unity Platform, and that is of Honorable Mpuga versus the National Unity Platform. I remember I quote the statements of Honorable Mpuga telling us that, for me, I have three places that can judge me. The first place, he talked of the kingdom, that is Mengo, where he previously worked. Then he came, he told us the second place, it is his area, the so-called the Batakas, those people, those clan leaders, those heads of the community,
the cultural institutions.
Yes, cultural institutions, for example, Pocono, what and what. Then he came to us, he came to the church, that is the Catholic Church. So, and those are the three places that can do what? That can tell me anything, and I can do what? That I can live my word. So what am I bringing? Why am I bringing this? Even to that scandal that happened, we are seeing the Catholic Church is fighting for Honorable Mpuga, right? Though his president, Mr. Chagulanyi, is also the what? Is also a Catholic, but the diocese in Masaka, the Catholic diocese in Masaka, is fighting for their son. Why? So to me, I will take it that people are still voting leaders, are still electing members of parliament, are still electing their LC5 chairpersons based on the religious denomination. Because even we are seeing those candidates, those competing candidates going to churches. I'm requesting to vote me. I'm requesting to do this. I'll do this and this. And we are seeing them being active in what? In constructing churches. So that is a way of motivating and inspiring people to do what? To put trust in them. So without their religions on their back, people won't trust them. Remember, people are trusting their religion more than the person. So they are nurturing. So even we take churches as training grounds for leaders, right? So there is no way you can't tell me that churches are not influencing. Churches are 100%, I would say 80% are influencing. I'll not be very biased, but I would say 80%.
Yeah, but I think what you're trying to put across is they're playing a role. They're, like you said, there's influence from the church.
Yes.
But I don't think people would come out and vote someone just because he's part of a certain religious denomination.
But don't generalize the things. People,
Okay.
they are humans.
Let me just quickly give you something
Yes.
to think about. I was baptized in the Catholic Church in Guru.
Yes.
And let me just give you context. Historically, we had, at the birth of political parties in 1957, political parties were founded on religious beliefs. You had the Democratic Party, the oldest party, was founded by what? Catholics.
Exactly.
So what was the opposing party then that came into existence? You had the Uganda National Congress, later on becoming Uganda People's Congress.
UPC.
UPC,
Yes.
majorly Anglican. Then you had later on the birth of Kabaka Yeka. Kabaka Yeka was majorly what? Anglican. But had foundations of the belief in the cultural institution of Buganda. Now what then happens? What made the elections of 1961, before Uganda got into I think 1958, around that time, UPC had to get into an alliance for them to win DP again with Kabaka Yeka. Both of them had grounds in the Anglican Church. They won those elections, right? DP lost the election, which was majorly what? Catholic. So what did the Catholic Church do? The Catholic Church, because if you look at how the Catholic Church brings its people, look at the setting. When you go to schools, the best students in Catholic institutions oftentimes end up becoming what? Teachers.
Yes.
Look at the Anglican setting. The best students in the Anglican setting oftentimes become what? Leaders. So that is how religion, in my opinion, has somewhat influenced our politics. So coming back to that argument, historically, the Catholics have somewhat always been very meek and calm people when it comes to leadership.
Yeah.
The Anglicans, on the other hand, have been very aggressive when it comes to leadership. I've just given you that example. The best students in Catholic schools, teachers. The best students in Anglican schools, leaders. Now, in 1962, who was our Prime Minister? Obote. Who was he? Anglican. Now, the Catholic Church realizes in the Democratic Party that we have a lot of work to do. What the Catholic Church has, foundations. They have structures.
Exactly.
Structures of which, even in the remotest of areas in this country, you will get a church. That is something what the Catholic Church has. So they go ahead and try to recruit and build on the structures that they have. But I don't want to go in so much into that history. But the foundation of my argument is religion, in my opinion, has played a significant role in shaping the politics of our country today. Fast forward, election of MPs. If you keenly follow elections, if you notice how candidates who are running for positions of MPs usually ally themselves with churches. Why?
Yes.
Because there's strength in numbers. And where do you get those numbers? Churches. And which people disseminate information so much? The church. Which people believe in particular individuals so much? Are those religious leaders.
Yes.
And the sheep believes so much in the what? In the shepherd.
Yes.
Who is either the priest or the pastor.
Mm.
Now, bringing this in relation to what we have or see in Martyrs Day, look at which people are carrying the offertory, taking it. Look at Tahevo, Mao, leaders. Now, that just shows you that the church, besides the third June celebrations, has a very, very important role in shaping our political terrain. But even historically, the church was so powerful those days that it even influenced and moved nations. Look at Rome's history. So that tells you a lot. But
Yes.
I am not a panelist. So let me just put the ball back to your courts. And as we try to wrap up the conversation of politics and the significance the life of the matters now have on our politicians. So let me just start with you, Derrick. The matters, as we have earlier discussed, have or depict a life of selflessness, dedication, hard work, and above all, faith.
Yes.
Is that something our political leaders ought to emulate?
Thank you so much, Drake. In my view, our political leaders will go by those values with time, because we must give them time. Remember, we have values that we want to first uproot in them, those bad vices that they have, right? So to bring in those values, those pure values in them, in fact, we need to advocate more to the church to instill in them those values of the what? Of the matters. For example, we need our leaders to be determined. But when I see our leaders are not determined, they are not determined. For example, look at our parliament, full of politicians and legislators. But they are there discussing commissioners' issues instead of discussing matters of national importance. They are concentrating on what? On individuals.
So how should the life of the matters influence them to focus more on the people?
On the people.
They ought to be selfless then?
Exactly. The life of the matters will force them to be determined and to work for the people, because we are seeing that these people died for a religion, which religion has people that are believing in it, right? So they are getting a lesson to be determined, to put matters that deserve to be prioritized than putting minor issues on the what? On the desk. Then the other thing is the thing of resilient or being persistent or what? On the issue. Our leaders lack that thing, but out with time they will cope up, or they will adopt that habit to be persistent and resilient on issues that are of national importance. For example, they must be persistent on bringing more ideas and more programs that are benefiting this indigenous Ugandan. Though they've done it, we will credit the government that has brought in place different programs to see. We are seeing that the government is having that element of persistence, but though the people, they are giving the duty or the role to go into the detail, to go into the ground to do it. For example, the MUGA, for example, the PDM, the people that they give the roles to administer the things, to put them to the last Ugandan, they are not having that value in them, that thing of being persistent, that we are giving this 1 million to Mr. Drake. How has he utilized it? They're not persistent in that. But out with the time, due to the fact that they've gone to Namugongo, they will learn to be persistent in what they do, and they learn to follow up, right? Because you're seeing that these people, though they were given several warnings from the king, Kabaka Mwanga, but they kept on being persistent. For us, we know what we are believing in. And then the other thing that our leaders ought to learn from the Uganda matters, it is the spirit of patriotism, the love for their country. You know, our leaders lack, and that's why they are taken several times to Chankwas, to instill in them those things, those values, but they are not learning, they are not grasping things. But I don't just because they are so having that thing of being there, they care for their stomachs and their families, right? But when they opt, or when they adopt that habit of being patriotic, we are seeing the Ugandan matters, they are patriotic to their religions. The 22 to 23, they are patriotic to their Catholic, Anglican religion, respectively. So we opt and we emphasize that let our political leaders please adhere to those values, so that we may see that we may have a better Uganda. We may target the 2040 vision, because we are hearing several times the president talks about it, but there is no way we will hit the 2040 vision when our leaders that are in place are not what? They are not in place to do what what it takes for us to be in that 2020 vision. And what I would say when it comes to the voters, also the voters have some lessons from Uganda, for Uganda Matters, not to vote anyone they see, anyone just because he has given you the 5K. That's why we are fighting and we are urging the government to put in programs that to bring in more programs so that they can uplift, they can really reduce that poverty line to go low. Because if I, Derrick, I have $1 million in my court here, there is no way you will come with your 200,000 to come to me that vote me, I give you this 200,000, right? So maybe the voters, they also get the lessons to be determined to vote good leaders. But
also work hard.
Work hard? Of course.
You have to think about it.
Of course, they have to work hard, but to work smart, there is a difference between working hard and working smart. You know, if we take things that, let's just work hard, maybe those potters on buildings, they will be the billionaires and the studios here. But just because they don't work smart, and that's why they're ending up earning less, but earning more, just using what? Brain. So we are adhering them to go to the values of the what? Of Uganda Matters. Who are voters, Ugandans I'm speaking to, be determined to vote really real leaders, not people that are faking life, right? And that's the problem that we are facing with Uganda. We are almost faking everything. Okay. Yes. So
right. Let me just quickly get to Hanah. Significance of the life of the Martyrs vis-a-vis our political leaders.
Yes. What
lessons do they ought to draw in their day-to-day dealings with Ugandans?
First of all, I would say that we have more politicians than leaders.
Exactly.
We don't have a leader must embody all those values of integrity, trustworthiness, respect for others. It should be servant leadership. Now, what we see here is people get into parliament, and that's where the story ends. And you find that now it's about them. But if they could pick a lesson of, it has to be about sacrifice. I'm not here for myself, but I'm here for the people that I'm representing. And if we had that mindset change amongst our own political leaders, Uganda would be far ahead, because they are laying ground for the next leaders. So if the next leaders come into play and they're still carrying on the same system, the same way of doing things, then Uganda won't go anywhere. So unless they actually do something amongst themselves and, pick up themselves and this is what we have to do and correct, you find that we put in more money to fight corruption than the money that is actually lost. And you're like, okay, now where is the corruption in this case? So you find that our systems are so broken. There is no accountability for anything. Corruption is everywhere. In church, in schools, in families. If we had a new revolution of the way things are done and leave behind the mediocrity lifestyle and now aim for excellence in what we do. Because with excellence, you're looking at respect, you're looking at, it has to be perfect, it has to be good. And I have to leave a good legacy for those. Now, what they are doing, they're not considering the people that will come into their shoes. Will they still, if they did the same things that the next leader will do, then where will we go? So they need to have that value system built in themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we try to wrap up the show, I would just like us to conclusively, socially, as students in our universities, but also soon to be leaders, I would just like us to maybe draw what lessons do we as students ought to draw from the Uganda Matters to influence our lives, to make us better citizens of this country. Derrick.
Thank you so much, Derrick. Definitely we'll go back to the values, because also we students, and as we students leaders, we have to opt to the values of the what? Of the Uganda Matters. For example, we students, university students, we must be determined to face what come may in our way. For example, we must be determined to face the life after campus, because it is not easy. It is a tough part of life, right? Yes. And the other thing, as we campus students or university students, we learn to be persistent. We learn not to just put our hands on things and move, jumping, moving things, the project is not done, you're on the other. The project is not done, on the other. So we learn to be persistent in everything we do, because you're seeing that the Uganda Martyrs, they were persistent due to constant warnings from the king. So we learn to be persistent, we learn to be resilient, we learn to focus on what we want. Actually, we learn to sharpen our focus on what we want. And then the other thing is, as we leaders, for example, majorly be in the university students leaders, we are determined through the Uganda Martyrs to have that sense of integrity. That sense of integrity. Actually, integrity, for me, I was saying that integrity is everything, right? So without integrity, even the people you're leading, they will not trust you. So we students leaders will learn to have that transparency in us, because after university, we are going to the public, we are going to the community, but the community is ready to handle people that are transparent, that people are having that sense of integrity. But the reason is why, as my colleague spoke previously, she told us that it is very difficult to trust a Ugandan due to this fact that we lack integrity. And she's right 100%. And that's why very many university students, they are jobless. I mean, those students that have completed degrees, they are jobless due to the fact that they have lacked the code of contact. Right? You give a job to an applicant, within 2 months, the true habits of him or her start to come out. Right? You're even the disciplinary committee of the company. So how I expect it to be there. And the other thing is that you will learn to, we university students will learn that sense of responsibility, right? We learn to be responsible for actions. We are seeing the Uganda Martyrs. They were responsible for what they were believing in, and that's why they ended up dying. And in the end, we are ending up celebrating them every year, every 3rd June, every year. So we learn that sense of responsibility. Let's be responsible for our actions. For example, I'll give you an example from the university I come from. We have a saying, and that saying came through our Vice Chancellor, Mr. Masala. He always emphasizes as students of St. Lawerence University, be responsible, right? Being responsible catches over, wraps all the university terms and conditions, because if you're responsible, you will not damage the university property. If you're responsible, you will not hurt the community. If you're responsible, you will not so the sense of responsibility comes in, because you're saying the Uganda Martyrs, they are responsible for their actions, and their actions tending to be that site of tourism, the site of economic impact, the site of religious impact. So people are learning a lot from them. Then the other thing is that what I will end is that we university students we learn to have that sense of courage, that sense of courage in us. You're seeing the Uganda Martyrs, they had that courage. You know, it takes courage to lie down and burn, and they burn as you're hearing the pain, right? So it's in that courage to do things, that courage to complete the course, that courage that I'll have a job after the course, that courage to help other students, that courage to lead other students to the right point, to the right way. Because, sorry, let me give you a brief story. I was elected to be the Guild Prime Minister, but the Dean of Students emphasized to us that can you please have courage to motivate your fellow students, right? Because we leaders, we are not elected to just command, but we are elected to inspire, we are elected to motivate other people. So you mind about your actions, you mind about the courage you're giving to people. So through the Uganda Martyrs that we are celebrated on 3rd June, the Monday, yesterday, we learned that they had courage, which courage needs to be transferred to the current generation, so that they may have that courage to do things, to complete tests, to complete projects, so that they may see themselves at the next level. Thank you so much.
Thank you. How about you, Hanah? What lessons can you draw?
There is a sermon by Miles Monroe, and it titles this belief system. And in that sermon, he talks about that your belief system will define you. It will talk about you even when you're not there. So one big lesson I pick from these matters is their belief system is why we still remember them up till today. If they had chosen a different path of life and be like, man, we can't die. What do you mean we're going to die? We just learned these things yesterday.
Yes.
They would not be celebrating June 3rd.
Yes.
Yeah, but because they stood out and they accepted what they believe. Because, you know, in those stories, they say, Mwanga tells them, when he enters his palace, and actually what sparked the whole thing was him coming, realizing the palace is on fire. And all these spiritual leaders are like, you know what, you're Christians. So he's like, Christians, so he calls them, he's like, if you're a Christian, come here. If you're not a Christian, go there. So you had to stand by what you believe. And in that moment, if you wouldn't remember any of them, like none of them would be in the history. But because they stood out. So in the same case, same thing right now. We need to stand up. If you are finding a challenge, if you're finding a problem here, the only way you can be remembered or leave a legacy is if you choose to stand out and be different. Yeah. So stand out and be different in everything you do. And your work will also speak for you. Who you are will speak for you. In this, no, being defined goes down to the smallest things. How you speak, how you dress. Like if I find you on a Monday morning and your hair is, you won't tell me anything. I've already defined who you are. Yeah. So how you present yourself and how you do everything will speak for you. So choose to stand out and choose to be presentable. Yeah.
For the children out there, since the panelists have forgotten you, I would like all the children to emulate Kizito. Remember when I was
the youngest.
When I was in my primary school, there was a day called Banachizito Day, and on Banachizito Day they would pick us from school and drive us to Namukongo, and we would dance with Father Luzindana as you know, as we celebrate the Lord.
How old was he?
Father
no, Kizito.
Kizito was 12.
12 years.
12 years, I think, if I get that right.
Must be around
was the youngest to matter. So, be a Kizito. I think being a child and standing your ground it means a lot.
Takes courage.
Even for the adults out there to stand their ground is quite complicated. So, to the children, to the elders, to we students, we need to, you know, emulate and depict a life of resilience, a life of selflessness, a life of servanthood, and a life of faith. We live in a world whereby there's so much distraction from us believing and knowing that there's God, because God actually exists. I don't want to start preaching. It's been a wonderful show. To our viewers out there, it's been Inter-University Interface, to Civic Space TV and Center for Constitutional Governance. Thank you for making this happen. To the technical crew, Pal, Ronnie, Brittany, thank you very much for making this possible. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.